the village, their activities, and how things work, but we do not report any opinion on those internal controls. That being said, if we do come across anything that we consider a significant deficiency or material weakness, those will be brought to you as the governance. Any other kind of best practice suggestions we'll bring to your management and kind of talk through those as we find. So we do bring anything that we find to you, but we don't express an opinion on those internal controls. We do review the required supplementary information that's included in your schedules. That is unaudited based on some of the information in there is not possible for us to audit, some of that pieces. However, the supplementary information is opined on in relationship to the financial statements as a whole. So we reconcile those to the financial statements and any underlying records to say that that supplementary schedule, usually those are combining schedules, maybe some budget to actuals, those kinds of things. We're saying those agree to the financial statements in a material respect. If you move to the next slide, it kind of gives an overview of how we get to those goals. It was really broken into 3 phases. First is that preliminary field work. That's where we kind of update our understanding of the controls, talk about anything new and exciting that's going on in the village, and make sure our plans are in place for when we come back for that final field work or substantive testing. That's where we're doing all the things that you normally think of as an audit. We're confirming account balances, looking at invoices. We do a risk-based approach, so we're not looking at every transaction, but we're focusing on those largest transactions, biggest transaction cycles, kind of the things that you guys are probably talking about in your board meetings as well. If you had any federal or state programs that were subject to single audit testing, that would occur at this time too. You don't currently have a single audit, but just something to keep an eye on as you continue moving through any of those federal grant programs. If they start to add up, you may end up in that land. The last is kind of pulling it all together, getting the report out to your management team to review, and then into your hands and into your other users' hands. Now, if you take a look through the financial statements, the only pages in those reports that are ours are those opinion pages, and then the report in the back schedule. The rest is all of your management's hard work. If you have just a few minutes to spend with the financial statements, or if you're telling somebody, kind of giving some guidance on those statements, the kind of few minutes to spend would be on that management discussion and analysis. It really highlights those key important features that are going on, but it's a little bit more context around those numbers too. What do they mean and what do they mean to the village? All the rest of the information is all there. Financial statements, the footnotes, and that required supplementary information. The required supplementary information is mostly your pension and OPEB information, so the WRS and any of your health insurance plans or any of life insurance plans that would exist. That's kind of most of what that required supplementary is. It's a multi-year schedule that gives you kind of a history. If you want to look back and said, what's the WRS been doing to us for the last 10 years? So next, I'm going to move on to a little bit of your audit and the results of what all that came together for you. So if you move forward a couple of pages, you'll see a divider that says your audit. The next page is your audit results. This is where I get to bring to you the good news that we issued an unmodified opinion, or what's commonly referred to as a clean opinion in the industry. This is consistent with what you've received in the past, and it's the highest level of assurance we as your auditors can provide you that those financial statements are free of material misstatements and presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also report to you if any of those internal control deficiencies that we noted. We have no material weaknesses to report, so that's good news. And the significant deficiencies we note is that due to the size of your accounting department, you can't achieve ideal segregation of duties consistent with other villages of your size. And we do assist with the preparation of those financial statements. Again, consistent with prior years, consistent with other villages of your size. If we turn to the next page to the continued audit results, we have no material audit adjustments, and we have no other major issues to report beyond 2 what we call uncorrected misstatements, which I promise sounds much scarier than it is. It's a couple of items that we brought into this year that relate to prior year information. One is the 4th quarter hotel revenue. If you remember back to last year, we talked a little bit about that. You'd been kind of recording it as the revenue came in. And then we had the COVID and all the recovery of COVID, and you ended up with these big spikes in your 4th quarter hotel revenues year over year. So last year, we didn't pick up the accrual. Talking with your management team, we decided just to avoid this in the future, we're going to pick up the accrual going forward. So just a little bit of a shift of how you went about that. But we didn't go back and restate all of your information from prior years to catch that accrual, just kind of brought it through the current year. The last is, as we were going through some deep dives on some of the capital asset records, we noticed there was a couple assets that had been depreciated past their original value. So we just got those cleaned up. They would eventually correct themselves as you worked through the rest of the useful lives of those categories of assets. But with all of the different projects that you guys have going on, working with your management team, we said we found them. let's get them cleaned up. But they weren't big enough to open all of last year's can of worms and take it out through there. So we got them cleaned up in the current year. Moving on to the next and the last page of your audit results, these are a few more of our general communications to you where I get to tell you a lot of no's, nones, and nothings. And when your auditor's telling you no, none, and nothing, that's all good news from us. We had no disagreements with management, no difficulties, no other matters to report. You do have a new accounting standard that's in force, but it didn't have any impact on your financial statements. So if you're looking at other villages, you may see something related to leases, either leases receivable or leases payable, leased assets. You didn't have any that impacted your financial statements this year. So you did adopt that standard. It just doesn't have any significant impact on your financial statements that we picked up. So just if you're looking at other villages or talking with other village team members, you may hear some grumbling about leases. That we did consider that, no impact for you guys. And this is my favorite part where I get to say thank you to your management team for all of their hard work getting this out the door. I know I'm the one that gets to stand up here and give you the results, but this is really your management team's hard work as well. I'll take a quick pause there. Any questions on the audit or the audit results? Otherwise, I'm going to shift into numbers. All right. Then if you flip through, you'll have your village as a header. And after that, you'll see a couple of pie charts, just a few high-level numbers. I'm just trying to put it in a little bit different visual. I know you get good information from your management team throughout the year. So this is just a quick look back to give you a couple of points of reference in visual format. One is your kind of where is your revenue coming from, and the other is where is your money going. So you'll see taxes makes up a little over half of your revenue, and intergovernmental and debt issuances are the other two large pieces of where's your cash coming from. Similar to what we've seen in the past years, a little bit larger with the debt issuance piece of the pie this year because you had in 2022 that little bit larger debt issuance. And your governmental fund activities, again, you'll see a little bit larger debt service piece as some of the different payments were made. And then you also, you'll see those split with public works, public safety, and your general government, culture, and recreation. So you'll see kind of where its money is being used. This is similar to what you've seen in the past. If you have prior presentations, you can bring them up and kind of compare side to side. But I wanted to get just a little bit of a visual of where those kind of money is coming from and going. The next page takes you through your general fund balance. That's what's left after you take all your assets, settle all of your obligations. Of that, about 700,000 is left in what's that unassigned. So that purple portion, the unassigned, is really what's available for you for your future planning and use and for your cash flow needs. So taking a look at that, you have your other pieces, your non-spendable, your committed, and then you have your minimum fund balance portion that you've set aside. But really when you're looking at it, that purple piece is what you have as you're making your plans, keeping in mind the cash flow needs and the cyclical nature of your revenue stream of taxes. So the last page is a little bit of a graph with your utilities, just a quick high level, where the revenues and expenses. Your non-operating revenues, primarily that is your interest payments on your debt, and your net transfers, that is primarily the payment in lieu of taxes from the utilities to the general fund, taking you down to your total change in net position and your PSC rate of return for the light and water utilities. Just kind of taking a look at those as you're working through those. I know you've got some big projects, particularly in the light utility, so just kind of keeping an eye on how that's going forward. Just a good tracking mechanism here. Just a quick snapshot. So that is all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but like I said, I have a lot of no's and nones, so that's all good news.
Shannon, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was having some technical difficulties, so I want to make sure that was working. Anyone have questions?
Okay, I missed that. I'm sorry.
I was just asking if they had questions.
I might have to have you move a little closer to the speaker. I can hear single words, but sentences are breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Good job. On page 5, you say we have a working capital reserve of $387,000. Paragraph under financial highlights, dot 2, last sentence.
Page 5 of the financial statement. Sorry, just need to switch documents.
Financial highlights, dot 2, last sentence. working capital reserve of 387,655.
Okay. The general fund balance was recent prior.
Yeah, page 5.
Page 5,
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of the way down.
Page 5, 1/3 of the way down. Overview of financial
Start off with
statements.
financial highlights, that's the bold.
Mm-hmm.
And 2
Funds
dots,
total.
whatever you call those bullets.
Bullet point.
Oh, yep.
Second bullet, last sentence.
Yep. The 387,000.
How is that determined?
That's your minimum fund balance. It's a calculation based on your total expenditures for the year, and I'll pull up my calculations so that I make sure I give you all of the pieces of that. Give me just one moment.
What, rather than tell me it, why don't you send it to me?
Sure, I'd be happy to send that to
What
you.
the calculations are.
Yep. Kelsey, can I coordinate with you to make sure we get it to the right individual?
And,
Yeah.
and considering the size of our budget, what's your opinion as to whether this is a reasonable amount or not?
So that's a hard question to answer. The GFOA is kind of recommendation, and that's what I'm going to fall back on since they have the largest population to pull from. They usually say about 33% is kind of a starting point for, if you're saying 33% of next year's expenditures for the fund would be kind of a starting point, and that might err on the high side, but that's a starting point for you to say.
But ma'am, slow down.
Mhm.
Let's go back to
Okay.
Let's go back to your first sentence. You
Sure.
30% of
Your total next year's expenditures. So about 1/3 of your next year's expenditures
1/3 of total expenditures is the reserve.
for the fund that you're looking at. So not including your light and water utilities or your sewer utility.
How
So
is $87,000 1/3 of anything?
So if you took your total expenditures, that would be kind of their starting point where the GFOA says, let's start there and take a look at what your cash flows are. So as far as whether it's a reasonable number or not, it has a lot to do with your other revenue streams and a lot to do with your management decisions and the board's determination of how much is reasonable to maintain and what are your cash flows. So your balance doesn't bring me any concern as an auditor, but whether it's sufficient or not for the village's plans and operations is really something that has a lot to do with your plans, your management decisions, and what you intend to use those funds for.
Your opinion as to whether it's a reasonable amount or not.
That's not really a question I can answer. So it doesn't bring me any concerns from an audit perspective, but whether it's reasonable or not is something that management and the board would need to determine if it can meet your future needs.
But you're our auditor.
I am your auditor, so I can tell you whether it's
more than all the rest of us put together. So we're interested in your opinion as to whether this is a reasonable amount or not.
I understand, sir, but it's not something I can answer for you. I can tell you that it doesn't raise us any concerns from a going concern concept. It doesn't bring me any issue
I
that
understand
you.
the concept. I understand the concept. The question is this a reasonable amount? And I don't have any way of determining that. But you see a lot of different villages, municipalities, and different sizes within the range of normal.
It falls within the threshold of what I would see in villages of your size. It doesn't cause me any concern. I wouldn't say you're at the high end or the low end. You'd be within the range of what I normally see.
Okay, all right. Second question.
Mhm.
I was unable to rationalize the reports that our utility company makes to the PSC, where it shows nominal profits and the profits that you show in this report. Is there
Sure, I should be able to.
where you rationalize those? I understand there are different systems and different mechanisms. Can you refer me to the page where you explain what those differences are? And you don't have to do that tonight. You can send that to Lauren as well, along with the other material, and I'll pick it up from there.
Sure, that actually I can answer pretty quickly for you. If you look in your reports, if you turn to pages 86 through 89, you'll see the light and water utility. Specifically, we'll start on page 87.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, that's your light utility. If you look about
The
halfway
bottom?
down, yep, at the bottom, you'll see the operating income, and then you'll see the items that reconcile that operating income to the PSC operating income that's reported.
The
And
operating
the
income
large,
that I showed under 50,000, I don't have that report in front of me. These aren't the
yep,
numbers that I saw in the PSC report. These are not the numbers.
so the it's the operating income. It's not the total income number that if you're looking.
I understand the difference between operating income. It was
Sure.
under 50,000. I don't see anywhere on this page that you started with that number and then worked towards the number that you gave us, which is typically what you do with one of these reconciliations.
Sure. I think what you're looking.
How figuring it out.
Sure, absolutely. So I think the first thing is the PSC report combines the light and water utility numbers together.
Yes.
So, and these two reports present them separately. So if you added together the light and water utilities, you'd probably be closer to that number that you're looking at. I'd be happy to take a look at it and pull it together, but those are going to be the two differences. The largest differences that you will see is related to the PSC's treatment of both the WRS pension and your what's called your other post-employment benefit plans. So your health insurance and life insurance promises to your retirees. The PSC report has requested that the numbers reported continue to report the actual amounts paid into those plans or paid on behalf of retirees, which is different than what the generally accepted accounting principle report requires to report, which is based on the actuary's estimate of the expense. That's your largest and most significant difference between your PSC report and your GAAP financial statements. It's a difference in how the regulatory body of PSC has determined the reporting of those and GAAP does. So as you're looking at it, that's going to be why there's such a significant difference in any given year, is that actuary calculated expense. And it's not a single year expense. That's what you'll see on the income statement. But if you're trying to look at the balance sheet numbers, the ending net position or ending fund balance numbers, that difference grows year over year as there continues to be differences in the amount of expense that the PSC requested reporting basis.
I will do more homework here. I wasn't able to do what you just described with these numbers.
Sure. And I'll double check and make sure that we've got all the pieces.
See if I can make them come out. Thank you for your time.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. My contact information is on the back of the presentation. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, and I'd be happy to help as well.
Anyone else have any questions for Shannon? If not, I just.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both and all for so much for your help. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Yeah. We need a motion to approve the audit. I move to approve the audit.
Second.
Okay. Chuck, did you have some questions or concerns before we take a vote?
No, I don't believe I'm in a position to vote on it. The presentation was so fast. I don't know if there was a machine.
I just thought that was me.
I think it was a
Came
terrible
in, it was
presentation.
going a mile a minute.
Yeah, I just can't, I'm sure. It's all fine, but I'm sure I can improve this, but
You're not happy with the presentation, is what you're saying, Chuck. I know, she was very, very fast.
that's an understatement.
I just thought it was me. I'm so relieved that you couldn't hear it either.
I think I can hear it, I could certainly hear it.
Well, I didn't mean it in that
I
context.
couldn't comprehend it, but I could hear it.
As always, if anybody has any questions about the audit or anything that's going on, again, I'm not an auditor, but I can do my very best to give you an answer.
Well, what are your thoughts in your, me coming in late and I apologize. You
on 2022.
Well, with the audit and
I mean, I guess from my standpoint, which I'll say this up front, I wasn't here, I started after a lot of the audit last year, and then I was on maternity leave for the majority of the audit this year, but I did do a lot of post and pre-work with the audit. And I will say, I wasn't overly impressed or happy with our auditors, to be perfectly frank.
Well, you are.
I've got this turned off, right?
Yeah, I mean, they know all this, I already told them, but
Just checking.
last year didn't go super well, and I just thought, maybe it was my first year, and I had different expectations, so we really had a lot of pre-meetings when I was still here before maternity leave, especially because I was gonna be gone, about how things had to go, and they just did not go that way. And then unfortunately, Shannon, who was on the screen, actually had an emergency medical leave. She just got back a few days ago. She's been out for the last 2 months, which, obviously can't be controlled on her end, but I also felt like we kind of just got told, like, well, save your questions for when she comes back, and as you know, like, especially financially, like, that doesn't really work for us, and when I would ask questions, I don't know that I got the answers I necessarily needed, so, yeah, so overall, Lauren and I have had many discussions, and we're looking at possibly, we're, at this point in the game, because this presentation is so late, ideally, I would like to have this in May, if that gives you an idea. So our PSC and our financial report is due to the state at the beginning of May. They got those I wanted them filed in March. They filed them the night before they were due. And then I wanted audit entries in the book at the end of May, beginning of June. I got audit entries at the end of July, beginning of August. And I think we got the books around the same time. So timeline just wasn't working great, and I just think there may be a better option out there for us. So at this point in the game, I think we need to go with them 1 more year for the audit, just because if we would put an RFP now to change all that over. And next year is a very heavy election year. So frankly, I just don't know that I'll have the time to brief a new auditing firm in spring on what we need for the audit. But we are looking at possibly doing an RFP in May of next year, as soon as this audit wraps up, to look at other options. I'm just not really happy with everything that's happening. And our costs did increase significantly this year too.
To me, it seems like the budget committee, should look it over with you and then recommend to the rest of the board, us who don't go through the financials.
Sure.
Should make a recommendation, right?
Sure.
And then we could ask questions.
Do we have a budget committee?
That's personnel and finance.
Personnel finance.
I mean, I will say as far as the actual audit and number, I mean, it's pretty status quo to what we've seen in previous years.
Okay, so for
Yep.
this year.
Yep, there was nothing major, yeah.
Coming for this thing.
Yep, we still have a healthy surplus, there's nothing going on in our office that is of concern. Outside of the one thing she mentioned was, we just don't have segregation of duties just because we don't have enough people.
We have that every year.
Yeah, and we have it every year, so that's the only slide.
Answered before we approve.
Two visits have the same thing.
You had some questions.
Yeah.
Do you want those answered before we approve?
No. I just don't know how it just seems like a weird number.
I hear you.
I mean, almost insignificant. Why bother at 387? But there's a rationale for this actually.
When did we change?
And also, how do you get money in and how do you get money out of it? Yeah.
Bill, is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor, which is to approve.
The actual audit,
Okay.
yeah.
Not the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item B, consideration discussion Green County Highway Department application for land division by certified survey map. It's a W6177, State Highway 39, parcel number 230-240-122-0000. So this is the property that the county is going to build their new county garage on. They brought everything before the PPP committee and unanimously approved it. So,
With one contingency, I was gonna mention,
memo that Mark Roberts put together, page 25. Number 2, the committee recommended changing the 66-foot private road easement to reserved for future 66-foot wide streets. And a related note. So, the committee did recommend that change as well.
Yeah, I like to, get a couple modifications, but I think I would approve it, or if there isn't any discussion, I have a motion written out, so you can. You don't have to type that.
What are you thinking?
I would, he says he has make these suggestions. I think they should be requirements that need to be complied with, because you need to know if the recreational utility and utility easement is public or private. You just have to. And I think that the language number 2 is good with the reserve of 66-foot wide streets. And I think, what else? I have an additional note with respect to the private joint driveway easement. I would leave it shown on the CSM, but then have some notation. I would put a note on the CSM that says, subsequent to the recording of the certified survey map, a 66-foot wide private joint driveway easement agreement shall be recorded at the Green County Register of Deeds office that further clarifies, outlines, and describes the beneficiary's rights, responsibilities, restrictions, and other matters, including the paved surface. Which is basically his comment, that would be the language on the CSM. And then I further clarify his comment number 4, or addition to the joint driveway, just say, add another note that says, a portion of the 66-foot wide private joint driveway easement depicted on the CSM extends under and across a portion of the road reservation area intended to connect to State Highway 39. And just say, said easement shall be the subservient easement subject to said reservation area and conditions thereof. Which.
He wrote it down for me.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
You know, and I want to really clarify that, because what he's trying to get at is if that's ever a street that has superior rights over this private access. And I just wanted to help clarify.
And the reason for a future public road would be to access the town hall for the public, is that?
No, there's no,
That's not the town hall there.
No.
This is just a green
Shop.
garage, shop.
Yeah. And the purpose of
Back
this
down to
is
the land where they're gonna do this. No, this is not on the farm big one. Okay, sorry.
This-
Sorry.
this-
That's okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we're clarified here. This land is right, when you go out 39 past the winery, and then there's that tower.
Yeah.
At the end of the houses, that's that farmland right there. Okay.
And the potential road reservation is if the rest of this farm ever develops, we would have, and the town would have, the right to require the rest of the connection down to Ashley Lane. So we actually have some connectivity between the roads, of Legwood Valley, Ashley Lane, Highway 39. So you don't have the problem that we have on, where the school is gonna build, we have no connectivity. So that's what he was commenting on, which is good.
Yeah.
So,
Not to jump the gun, but you wrote this out as, let me clarify this.
It's a motion.
I would make it a
Motion that you
motion,
will make.
I'll read it again.
Yeah, but like,
But I can have that actually.
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah, what I would do is make a motion to conditionally approve the CSM subject to the following conditions. And then,
okay. That was my question.
Yep.
We included all of it.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward land condition.
Yeah.
Other than, I like his points that he brought up. It seems like he did a pretty thorough review.
Well, that's, we have a pretty good person.
Well, Mark used to work for him. Okay, no, that was, but, I know him, so he's done this all.
Yes, Doc?
What's going on here? I mean, the township is moving its, I know where the township stuff is, and I can see where they wanna move out. Now the county moves out. Are we taking over the spaces down there?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay, so that's all still,
Yeah. That's all.
okay, I just.
We haven't even stepped foot in that project, that I'm kind of caught between sheriff property and the county and the village president, I kind of gotta watch what I'm. saying in that issue. I kind of told them what I'd kind of like to see happen, but let's see. But this is county, they're gonna move the county garage back by the town's, or the village garage. And hope, and the township builds, hopefully they're gonna build a town hall out there too.
Yeah.
So they'll be out in the country.
But they'll be the hay farm.
Yeah.
The other comment I had, Chuck, was to clarify that the 40-foot strip on 39 that's dedicated to the public, I want to say dedicated to the public for road right-of-way purposes, so it's correct. So, you know, what it's dedicated for, you know. Unless there are any questions.
So does anybody have any questions of the motion?
I'll make it.
So, I thought you started doing that already.
Well, I would.
But you're gonna read through it,
Yeah, Mike has it picked out, correct?
I
Yeah.
can read it.
or somebody's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will make a motion to conditionally approve the certified survey map subject to the following conditions. And that is to comply with the comments from Mark Roper's review letter dated August 16th, 2023, with the following modifications. Make it a requirement that all comments be complied with. Leave, in comment number 3, I would leave the easement on the face of the certified survey map and note that the easement is a 66-foot wide private joint driveway easement, see notes section of the CSM, and adding the following notes. Add a note to the note section of CSM stating, subsequent to the recording of this certified survey map, the 66-foot wide private joint driveway easement agreement shall be recorded at the Green County Register of Deeds office that further clarifies, outlines, and describes the beneficiary's rights, responsibilities, restrictions, and other matters, including the paved surface to be constructed for this easement. Add an additional note to the CSM stating a portion of the 66-foot wide private joint driveway easement depicted on this certified survey map extends over, under, and across a portion of the road reservation area intended to connect to State Highway 39. Said easement shall be a subservient easement subject to said reservation area and the conditions thereof. And the final one would be to add the words for road right-of-way purposes after the words State Highway 39 dedicated to the public, as shown on sheet 102.
Thank you.
So we had a motion,
I'll second.
Mike seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry, Mike.
I didn't yell at it. I just
Okay.
thought I said it to her real quick.
I don't. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mike.
Item C, consideration discussion of July financials, on page 36.
Okay. So there were some questions at the last board meeting regarding the July financials. So I wrote up a memo, kind of try to summarize some information and provide further clarity. So I'll just quickly go through that and feel free to ask additional questions. So for the revenue side, the village has collected 1.4 million in general fund revenue, and we have budgeted 1.6 million. We're on track to meet and likely surpass that budgeted number. This is because, one, we're still expected to get shared revenue. We've only received a portion of that. We'll get more shared revenue coming in, we believe, in November. And I also mentioned here that, we budgeted $5,000 in interest in 2023. We've already collected $100,000. So, that's kind of another piece to it that we will likely surpass our budget revenue. I also want to mention that ARPA funds are not included in this statement. That will be added to the August financials, but that is why there's a little bit of discrepancy. So there should be an additional $225,000 included in the actual budgeted revenue, which I guess important to know there.
What was that number? More?
225,000
Good.
and some change.
It's right here, no wonder.
So that's the revenue.
Oh, that's important.
So, and then moving on to expenses, I tried to kind of highlight a few.
Can I just
Yeah.
interrupt?
Yeah.
On the revenue end, just for clarification, just so everybody knows, budgeted 5,000 for interest and collected over 100,000. That's a big difference. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, so we generally, because interest is so volatile every year, we don't budget a lot of interest, and this year is a high interest year. Hopefully I talked about maybe budgeting more for it, but I mean, to be honest with you, $5,000 was reasonable in previous years. This year has been an extremely high interest year, and we have a pretty sweet deal with our current, setup with Lake Ridge Bank as far as we earn the same interest on our checking account as we do on our savings account, which isn't super common.
I wish I did.
It's a pretty high rate too, so, we're riding this good wave right now, but I'm hesitant honestly to budget a lot more in future years, because some years $5,000 in these, on that specific account line isn't far off.
So I realize that, market influences
Yep.
have changed in the past year, but this is $95,000.
Yeah.
Big difference.
It is.
Did we have more money invested in interest-bearing accounts, or it was just?
No, we utilize the local government investment pool, which gets us pretty good interest rates. We're at 5.2% right now.
Okay.
So that's what we've been utilizing, and some years it's not as good, and this year it's really good. And we do collect interest on like all of our bonds, so we get that lump sum, which obviously we pay interest on those too, so it's double-edged sword, but any of those large amounts of money, I have separate bank accounts at the bank, and we collect interest as well, so.
So your payment will reflect it.
Yeah, I mean, not.
Not as much.
Yeah, there's not as much of it. We have a pretty good, payment schedule, we have a decent idea of what, I mean, it's always a little off every year as far as interest, but not a
But it
lot.
would never fluctuate.
Right.
Well, so when they did the budget last year at this time, what the interest rate? That's
Right.
Jared, so what were the bulk of the investments that made up this,
It's all village money, the money that we have at the bank.
but I mean, what
Especially the
was where? I mean, we're not talking checking.
Probably have to break
That's
those
all
down.
municipal.
What brought in the most, is that what you're saying? Bonds or?
It's a investment portfolios, I could get more information.
Oh, on the interest rate.
I'm sorry,
Right,
yeah.
I think what Chuck is getting at is,
Well, I mean,
how much money we got out there that's drawing interest, like, CDs or.
Yeah, we don't have any CDs, I mean, all of our village money at Lake Ridge Bank, which is where we keep almost all our money, we have a couple library accounts at Bank of New Glarus, but for the most part, everything's at Lake Ridge, and all of that is drawing the same rate of interest. So everything from,
drawing on what sort of, instrument?
it's
We don't have CDs.
What do we have in there?
So the money market or?
It's in the local government investment pool, I can get more information on how they invest those monies. Right.
But it's liquid instantly?
Yeah. Right, yeah,
Okay.
it's available whenever, yeah. And we are exploring, we've had conversations with Dollars, our financial advisor, about doing actual investing with some of our surplus.
I'm sure very deep in all our reports, this stuff is there, but,
Yeah,
just to make it
Yeah.
clear to
yeah.
a lay person like myself.
Yeah, no.
If
Yeah,
you send
free
out
money,
a-
yeah,
Send out a
yeah.
memorandum of where did this money come? Because, this is significant. $95,000 in there.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big increase.
So you're saying it's over 100, it's way over 100 so far.
It's over 100 so far, but if they're years.
No,
over,
it's, right?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You're earning over 5%, your balance is somewhere around 7 million.
That balance fluctuates
I understand that, but it's more than $100,000.
I mean, the $100,000 is what we actually get, what I've actually recorded in interest this year.
Over 5,000.
And
Which through the end
Year
of
to
July.
date, Kelsey?
That was at the time of the July financials, correct? Yeah, right in July. So I mean, that was.
so we're requesting then sort of a breakdown of where we're getting this. Are we getting it from, what are we getting, what percentage of our investment is from bonds, how much do we make off that? What is it, money markets, which we don't use, how much do we make off that? I guess, is that what we're looking for?
That's what I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I just want to know, I mean, I'm not questioning it.
Right.
Certainly,
What purpose?
I just want to know,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of time.
yeah,
I don't know, is that a lot of time?
I mean, so to just give you an idea, when I do month end every single month, which isn't a standard necessarily practice of every municipality, and every single month I get the interest and we break it down between every single checking account we have. So all of our savings accounts are broken out between PD, public works, village hall, et cetera. All of our borrows are broken out by that specific borrow. We have a surplus, we have our checking. So all of those accounts get a certain percentage of interest based on what their account balance were at the end of the month. And some of that is reflected in the personnel and finance committee gives a cover page that you can see those accounts broken down, and I'd be happy to share that with the board too.
well, I wonder if Lakewood could just do a pie chart or a graph chart for us and just say, we'd like a breakdown of our, where we receive.
Yeah, I know we can,
Is that-
yeah,
And you don't
yeah,
have to do
yep,
it,
yep.
and then just send, give us the pie chart.
Sure, yeah. No problem.
Yeah.
and then we'll shop.
You're running right now, it wasn't this way in January, right now you're running 30,000 a month, round number.
Just doing a few more.
And I mean, obviously, we hope that this is the same conversation at the end of the year, but that's the thing that's scary with interest and even budgeting. It's even scary to budget any interest at all because we just don't know. I mean, obviously.
Where would this be discussed? In this,
Personnel and.
Finance.
Like, what would be discussed? What specific topics would you talking about? Like,
how do we invest it? I mean, it's done this, right?
right,
You can now do this.
right, exactly,
So one of the things to do is to stretch out those investments.
right. So, like I said,
But where do you want to discuss that?
I
You want,
think,
you're in the midst of the budget stuff, right?
right,
But this is a really big item for 2024, it's $20.
right.
Are we gonna have in there?
Right, right now, as far as actual investing, we're talking with Ellers to develop an investment plan that's low risk, but also gives the village, utilizes some of that extra interest money that we got this year. And also acknowledging the fact that this may not be the case this time next year.
So your overall, all your entities investment average is 5.2, correct? Is that what you're saying?
That's
With-
the interest rate we're getting on every single account that we have in our bridge, which is everything from checking to surplus to.
So how much, round numbers, how much do you have in your checking account and how much do you have in the municipal fund?
It fluctuates, but right now I just found the checking account and I have to move over the August settlement, but we have like $900,000 right now that I have to. But honestly, in the past, we were really diligent about moving stuff to surplus before our checking account matched our surplus rate. But now that those interest rates match, it's not as big of a concern to get it there by a certain date. I still move stuff over to surplus all the time. But before I would be freaking out about making sure they got moved before the,
So they're matching that fund right now?
So how often can they change that interest rate?
it changes it fluctuates based on the.
Daily, monthly?
Yeah. I mean,
Monthly?
that we get it on our statement and we get that month, like my measure of it.
Okay, so that's not a set rate, it just goes in.
Yeah, it's based on the pool that
Yeah.
Laura mentioned, and then, Lake Ridge, throws in an extra, what was it, 0.32 or 3% to get us up to.
So that would be hard to predict for, but,
It's impossible.
yeah, okay.
It's like predicting the weather.
So when is Ayers gonna come up with a plan to ask a month or so ago, right?
Yeah, right now we need to adopt the investment policy in order to start working with them. And that is in the hands of our attorney who is very busy.
You're gonna do what?
Our investment policy is currently in the hands of our attorney.
Why do you give it to the attorney? What does he have to do with it?
That was the recommendation from Ellers to have him review it first and then take it to the board.
Really, he can't add and subtract much to make a decision about our investment policy.
it has to do with wording and like reviewing our current policies and making sure they're in line
So
with that.
where is it now?
It's in his hand, waiting.
What, can I have a copy of whatever is in his hands?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll remember where to look for it. Because I think this business of, the volatility of rates is, it's very normal, except for the last 7 or 8 years where we all got used to nothing. Right? Now we're back to kind of the normal, but, the whole point about volatility is to try and offset the volatility.
Yeah.
And that's, it's not rocket science, but it does require some discipline to know when to do it and what.
You want to continue? Noel?
Yeah. Okay. That was revenue. I just highlighted a few things in expenses. I think there was some questions at the last meeting regarding salaries. And I wanted to highlight kind of an issue we're facing right now with budgeting salaries. So you'll notice, like, street admin, for example, we're about 8,000 under budget, so contract to be 3K over budget. So getting into the nitty gritty of village operations here, but, basically, we break down salaries, into certain accounts. So, my salary, for example, is funded through some from utilities, some from general funds, it's kind of all these different accounts. We do that for a lot of our employees. But then additionally, we have several employees, a lot of public works and utility staff, who turn in timesheets that break down their time as well. And so those numbers are probably never going to match up exactly to what our budget is. And so in other municipalities I've worked at, we haven't done the timesheet thing. We've only broken it up in the budget so that it matches year to year with budget and actual. That's kind of hard to explain. We're looking at possibly changing the way we do timesheets. Unfortunately, it's too late to change much now because we've already completed most of our wage and fringe information for the 2024 budget, but we're definitely looking at it for the future so that, the budget and actual line up better. And so we're not seeing, a huge, over budget in one salary line and then super under budget in another. So,
But I will say, like, at the end of the day, they balance each other out. So really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal that street admin is a little over and park salary is a little under, whatever that may be, because they're all in the same fund and they balance out. But yes, in the terms of accuracy, it would be very nice to have.
Sure.
Do you think the timesheet breakdown is just a complication that we can live without?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in other municipalities I've worked at, every year you just review, I actually spend more time doing X, Y, and then you break it out in the salaries instead of every single timesheet you're marking down. I spent 15 minutes doing this and
Which is
30
what we're
minutes
doing
doing
now.
this.
Yep. And also another thing, like, if we break a lot of things down here, we break a lot of things down to pennies. Every single benefit that I'm breaking down our public works uniforms, for example. I have some accounts that get charged 2 cents every month that I'm breaking down. So I do think there's efficiencies that can be made in those operations too. But I think the first step of this is eliminating the timesheet thing and just focusing on each year at budget time. Okay, Joe, is 25% in street admin, is that accurate, or do we need to increase that to 30%? I think we're maybe looking at it when we go into electronic timesheets, so we don't double the work on ourselves. If we get rid of it now, we have to redo the wage and fringe, and then we're gonna have to redo it again when we upload everything for the, electronic timesheet. So I think we're looking at making that change at that time.
So where does the big deal come in as far as changing this system? You mentioned whatever, when does this, if you change this, when does this, take effect?
Yeah, we're working through that timeline now.
Maybe I'm getting
Complicated.
ahead.
No, you're not. It's complicated because, we're looking at an update to our utility billing system right now called North Star. And that our system and that system don't necessarily, it'll basically make one of our piece of our system obsolete, and so we don't wanna upgrade that piece
Pay the money.
and pay the money to upgrade it and then only use it for like 6 months or something. So,
So you're working it out.
yeah, electronic timesheets are probably gonna be delayed until mid-year next year, so that we can update utilities first and then move on to that, so.
And honestly, it's not the worst case scenario because it gives us like payroll that time to like think through it and make sure when we do make that change, that we're doing things correctly instead of doing it and being like, oh, we should have done it this way, you know?
Yeah.
It'll be nice when we get there, it's just the road there is a little curvy.
All right, couple last things I want to highlight from the financials. Administration, you'll notice there are several lines that are already over budget, and I just wanted to highlight, so the audit, property insurance, and liability insurance are all items that are broken down amongst several different accounts, and that has not happened yet. So they're actually going to be less once those are broken down, but for the time being, we're writing them as is.
Basically, those, well, with the audit, I'd like to wait until we have all of our audit bills, which we now do, because I don't want to do this once again, this breakdown is labor intensive. I don't want to do it multiple times, I like to wait until we have all of our audit bills, and then I break it down with the total cost of the audit. For the insurance, because we switched from M3 to the league insurance, we have some pretty complicated timesheets or spreadsheets on how that expense is broken down between utilities, library, chalet, village, et cetera. And now I have to figure out a way to modify those, and do we even want to break it down that way anymore, because it was broken down, like I mentioned, so intensely, is it worth that? And B, the league, what they charge us, how they charge us, is completely different than how I created it, so a little bit of a project that I have to do.
And finally, so overall, we've spent 1.1 million in the general fund, we budgeted 1.6. But with the ARPA funds added in, we actually have a budget of 1.8 million. Actually, I think that should be less.
It's a little less,
Yeah. So looking at kind of where we were last year, we're about the same in terms of differential. And I just wanted to highlight how seasonal our budget is. Parks and Pool, for example, make up 10% of our budget and are spent within 3 months. So it's not, it's not just dividing by 12 times 7, and that's where we should be at the budget. We spend a lot more on kind of the front end of it. But we're about the same as where we were last year, so that's a good kind of metric to look at.
Was the budget for 2023 larger than the budget for 2022?
Yeah.
Yes. And when you say we're about the same, you mean relative to the budget or absolutely?
Yep, this year, we're currently at a difference of $675,000, and last year, around the exact same time, we were at a difference of $703,000 of budget versus actual.
So less than 50.
Yep.
Okay.
So, happy to answer any other questions. Like I said, it's hard to look at specific lines because, things happen throughout the year that will make it over budget. But if you look at like departments overall, I think that's an easier way to figure out if we're on track or not. And Kelsey and I are happy to answer questions that pop up.
That's
Not
I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we need a motion to accept the.
I don't think we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just an update from last time.
Okay, item B, consideration discussion 2024 permits and licenses, page 44 in the packet.
And then a revisit on items discussed at the last meeting. We made some updates based off of the discussion, and that's in the furthest right column, the proposed to be changed. You'll see we increased liquor licenses to the maximum. We added, for like CSM, for example, we added plus cost. think we hit on most of the kind of recommendations from the board. I did want to mention one thing on the very last page of that fee schedule. I did leave food truck permit fees the same, and the reason I did that was I believe food trucks are a really useful economic development tool.
Yeah.
You know, businesses that are trying to start out and find out if Blair's is a good spot for them to start a restaurant, you know, food trucks are a great way to do that, and so I don't wanna cost prohibit them out of that market. So I left it the same, but happy to, you know, discuss it further with the board.
And I also think too, it
You mean-
it has people coming into town to spend money
Exactly.
that
You
has
left
not.
the same as what?
As
As
last
last meeting.
I was just gonna say that, you see people in the community.
Yep.
Come in and they walk around town and see food
Yep.
trucks, a different one every day. This is really cool.
Chuck, it's the very
I
last item.
talked to other.
Last page, very last item, that's highlighted in yellow.
I see that, but we don't have a,
It was a new permit, so there wasn't one to go off. This is what was presented at the last time we had this discussion. And you had maybe indicated that you wanted to see it increased, and we did some more research and left it the same as last.
but I didn't know we had one.
We
You
don't.
don't. This is
That's why
new.
it says possible addition
Yeah.
of it.
I'm sorry, I still don't see where you're.
On
Right here,
page
possible
48.
I see the last item, possible additions. The last item, food truck permit, specifically for food trucks that are not part of a special event permit. Under the fee, there's nothing on my
Permit,
sheet.
right,
And then proposed
Yep.
is $100 a year or $50 for
Right.
3 days.
Yep.
So why are we talking about leaving it the same? It's not leaving it the same, this is charging a fee, right?
leaving it the same from discussion last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I got another question. On the, operator permits.
Mhm.
Or, I should say alcohol license fees.
Yep.
Operating license, 2-year, $35. Current.
Yep.
And then our proposed is $50. And that's for 2 years?
Yes, and
Why do we do 2 years?
that's just how it's been statutorily in our ordinance, and frankly, we don't have the staff to do this it's a very labor intensive process to get our operator, we have to do that every single year with every single operator in this village, I mean, doing it every 2 years is labor intensive.
But now it's $35 for 2
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Currently, it's $35 and that's for 2 years.
Correct,
And we're gonna increase it $15
correct,
for 2 years. Why don't we increase it a little bit more?
we certainly can. The thought behind that was simply because it's a permit that an individual pulls and not a business, and,
Well, so that's not entirely true. Some of the businesses pay the fee for the.
Right,
because-
but-
And that's very common.
Right.
Due to the lack of.
right, but statutorily, that license doesn't belong to that business, so that's why I was
Well, I
trying to be
understand
cognizant
that,
of
but,
making sure that.
you know, based on what I know of, you know, people that are somewhat, should I say, permanently employed as operators. Cheap, $25 a year is really cheap.
Yeah, I mean-
I think that, I wouldn't mind seeing that raised to $100 or $50.
Yeah, I would ask the board not to change the 2-year requirements and put it under on
Put it to
$100.
I would agree with Chuck.
If you're knocking down $300 a night tips
Yeah.
at certain places,
Right, yeah.
plus your,
I would just ask that if we get to a motion with this, just to make sure that change is included.
Bartenders, they're paid hourly too, correct? Is it similar to,
Yeah.
most of them.
Yeah.
is it similar to like wait staff, where it's like $3?
No, it's usually
No.
higher.
No.
When I bartended in college,
It was
like
federal minimum.
$9.
Yeah, they're up around the $7 an hour area here now, if it's a place that, you know, you can get decent tips. If you're not gonna get decent tips, you're probably not gonna get in. You get 10. But, yeah, it's
So I crossed that out and changed hundred.
Yes.
So as long as that's in the motion, I can do that.
I have a question myself, and it relates to the, it looks like you raised the dog license fees, which I totally
Yep.
agree with. I've talked to some people in the community, including, professionals, the vet clinic. Is this the appropriate place to possibly add in, I guess I would call an animal at large call? Because I saw in the paper, I think it was last week, there was a resident, I think it was 3 times in a single day that was called, where he had to go out
Yeah.
for the same animal in the same day.
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that would probably be.
That's the bill,
fine.
that's the
Yeah.
village order.
Is that a
Yeah.
bit, so?
These aren't fees, that's like a ticket if you were like
Okay.
speeding.
Well,
or
I'd like
something.
I'd like to talk about
But
that
you,
some other
you read a
time.
citation, and there's a charge for that. $175.30.
$75?
$175.30.
I mean.
And the police department has a whole set of fees, like a whole fee schedule
Oh,
that's
yeah.
separate from this. So like,
No.
copies,
It's like-
yeah, discovery, all that.
Tied to the ordinance, then, would there be a requirement with that fine to make them license their animals so that we can have a record of it?
We already do it, if we know somebody doesn't have a license, we get a list from the clerks,
Okay.
and we get it updated here and there. And, we check the list, if they're not, which a lot of them we deal with, that are aren't, they get that ticket too, and that's another $167 and something.
Okay.
And we give them a deal, we tell them, if you go get it licensed, we'll, possibly void the ticket, and don't even go get a license, so.
I just don't understand that. That's residents I've seen before.
Oh, you're gonna see a lot more, I'll tell you, there's, we're dealing with, I gotta get a hold of Bill and try and get an abatement order going and everything. I think we've given her probably, if I had to guess, without looking, 30 to 40 tickets. She just lets it run when it gets out. And people call, we even had the county humane officer.
Does she pay those?
No. She didn't pay them, she didn't show up for court once. That's a whole nother issue.
Sorry to open up that, no, I just wanna make sure. That was you brought up in the right spot. That's just.
Yeah, so like all the tickets we write, like Chelsea said, this is just your fees for like licensing and stuff. We have a whole big ticket thing for writing tickets or things.
And the other thing too, I just wanted to point out that we added, based on your suggestion, is the ball field use, we did $50 per day. I think
Oh,
last
okay.
time it was just presented as $50, and we also made sure,
yeah.
made it clear, right,
That's
made it
They
clear
use it
that,
for, when they use it for a day, it's used.
right. And
Oh.
we also made it clear that it does not include the concession stand, including the power, I mean, it literally is just the ball field. So, and
It's worth it.
in hopes that they will then want to use their car too.
Right,
Yeah.
Another one I want to point out that we made a modification to is the special event permit. After discussing a little bit more, we decided that the alcohol component adds a lot more staff administrative time, just reviewing it and ensuring, safety and all that. So we changed it to $50 for events that are not serving alcohol and $100 for events serving alcohol.
Good idea.
That way, the
Good
events
idea.
that are smaller, maybe a nonprofit, and they're not, getting a bunch of money from alcohol, they can afford $50.
And we currently have, out of all the special event permits, I believe we have 2, possibly 3 that don't, so it's not a large number that don't serve alcohol, most of them do.
Well, and it's motivation for nonprofits if they're doing things not serving
Yeah.
alcohol.
Exactly,
Have special events
exactly.
and not worry about paying that fee, because there
Yeah.
are quite a few that.
Right.
There's one this past weekend.
They serve alcohol. Yeah, but there is one coming up,
Yeah.
I think, in a couple weeks that doesn't serve alcohol.
How's that gonna work with the Charlotte Golden Police going along?
That's not special event.
Yeah.
That's not considered a special
Nope,
event?
they get a temporary license and they have to have insurance, and they can't have insurance in the village, because the village can't hold them. So that's why the chalet has to get their own insurance. In the past, I think the Nuclear Vision Group helps them with that, that's not the case anymore, so, but yeah, the wine walk is not a special event. What I will say though, regarding the wine walk, is that's a little misleading, as we've had this conversation in the past. If they want their patrons to be able to take their glass of wine and walk from business to business, that would be a special event. Because they'd be open and top on public street.
And also can.
And right now, they cannot. I'm not saying they never do, but they're not.
Right. Technically.
It's truly just a temporary, like, that they.
Again, we call it,
I mean, I agree that the wine walk connotation is very.
And that's really,
We brought that up
We
in
did.
past meetings before about the changing the name.
no, they need, they did it, we could put a little pressure on.
Yeah, they did it last year. They did change it last year, and I don't know if it was just different planners this year or what, but yeah,
I think they didn't have the same number of people
Yeah.
showing up to it,
yeah, could be.
because the verbiage of it made it seem like you're not really kind of going place to place to get different. So that's why they changed it back to 1 o'clock. Heavy emphasis on walk. You cannot have alcohol walking from this to this.
I think we can maybe.
Jeff, so they were quite adamant about not changing that terminology, right?
Yeah, if I remember right, it was,
They don't make the rule, we make. the
but we told them, and I talked to them through that, they had to make it clear that there's no alcohol around, or people are.
They gotta do it,
That's
that's how we say.
I agree.
Event either.
The owners told us that each time they would serve us. The different
That's
places,
good.
they told
That's
us, you have to finish this before you.
I told them
The
too.
businesses are very good.
Yeah,
They did.
I mean,
Yeah, they have to. It's not gonna be an event for very long.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So they were good about it.
I did not hear any.
The concept is fine, it's just the verbiage has been misleading since it started.
Yeah.
Just need to change.
All right, E-rate, land division, let's do something. So really, the only change is,
The 100.
if you needed a motion, you would make a motion to approve the fee changes with the modification to $100 for the alcohol license fees as per.
Operator.
Our operator's license, sorry.
And was there one other thing?
I think everything else we agree on.
So I'm just gonna clarify, $100 for 2 years.
100, yeah.
Yeah.
$100 for 2 years for the operator.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you for your work. Motion carries. Okay, item C, consideration discussion 2024 lifeguard wages and pool fees.
Hey,
Laura or Kelsey?
talk about some more fees. All right, page 49. So we've been having discussions among staff about possibly raising lifeguard wages next year. We were able to hire enough lifeguards this year, but it was definitely harder given, every community is raising their wages. It's a competitive market these days. Just for clarification, so our starting wage right now is $9 an hour, and if they receive, certification, it gets bumped up to $11 an hour. I didn't list a ton of communities, but for example, Verona offers $17 to $22 an hour. And we do know at least one lifeguard that's left us for Verona, so we know that the market is competitive, and so we'd like to look at how we can increase those wages for next year.
It's still okay.
Through the school, so I don't know if that impacts.
Fellow school owns their pool.
Yeah.
Oh.
I tried to find their wages and I wasn't able to, I can find out.
And the other thing I'll add to the Verona comparison is the other major polar that we have, if you will, is the home. Because we have a lot of, we've had it in previous years, we have a lot of high school students that get their CNA or, find work there that make substantially more than $11. That's a huge market for us.
And we pay our LTEs $15 an hour as well.
We start at 15,000.
You're saying it's not just competitive with lifeguards.
Exactly. We're losing people to Culvers, to the home, to et cetera, et cetera.
I looked at your recommendations here on fees and you're keeping them off a percentage.
Mhm.
Another way to look at this is just to flat them out. Like family 2 to 4, $200 instead of $199. this 5% discount thing. I mean,
Lots of
you just
things.
make it more,
Oh, yeah.
you need the revenue, right? You
Yeah.
need the revenue.
Yeah.
And the only thing I hope the 5% discount business. I mean, what they want.
You
is
mean for the
cool.
early registration fee, or?
It's just one more calculation.
Yeah.
One more explanation.
It's something, yeah, I think it's something that we've just done for a very long, which isn't a good reason, but something we've done for a very long time that I think was an encourager to get
Wow.
people to register.
I
And
took advantage
Yeah,
of
right,
it as a parent before, I got that
Exactly.
5% off.
we do this,
That was, it was a motivator to register if you had a family.
right, thing. I mean, I'm a non-resident and I register for a
I'll leave all that up to
Yeah.
you. I would just round these things all off.
Yeah, I can speak to like the 9%. I know it seems like a funny number, but that was just based on what I tried to do was after we had a conversation with our pool director, with Megan, and what she thought would be reasonable rates for our lifeguards, I tried to offset our revenue with that, and I
I understand you're doing it.
9% is what I landed on for that specific scenario, and then you can see I went on.
Let me give you one, what on earth is shower only?
We have some people from the New Glarus Woods that come to the pool to shower, because there's no shower.
Okay, good. Charge them a flat rate. I mean, just charge them as an adult. Make it easier for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can, I don't know that
They
it's
pay
makes
next
it
to
that much
nothing out
harder.
there as it is, so let's get that money down here. So charge them just for a daily pass, that's your daily pass. You don't wanna go in the pool,
Yeah.
well, it's never mind for me.
We certainly could. I will say we have some passes broken down, like we have a daycare provider pass and a grandparent pass.
That's the one area where I'd make sure you didn't move it.
Right.
Daycare is under a lot of heat right now.
Oh, yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
dollars. And I would not move it for that, but the rest of them, I just round them up.
Yes.
Whatever you decide, I'm gonna vote.
I will say that I think we did run up the daycare and the grandparent, but not as much as the other ones, just to keep them in line, but we can definitely look at. What I tried to do, because there's 1,000 different directions we could go with this, so what I try to do in the essence of time and then also not overwhelming with information, is to put a flat rate percentage on our fees, and then the other thing to note is how we record these fees. Season passes and daily admittance all goes into the same revenue. So those are not broken out, they're not broken out by type, and they're not broken out by resident versus non-resident. So it makes it very, very hard when you're raising things to figure out exactly, and also predicting how the pool is gonna do next year, like predicting the weather next year, because the pool could do really well, the pool could do really bad. So I tried to make this as straightforward.
Your logic is without a flaw. Your
Well,
logic is without a
you say so,
flaw.
Ross.
I'm thinking about this from the point of view of the lifeguard trying to explain stuff.
Right, right,
Family, $200.
right.
Well,
The good thing is the lifeguards don't deal with
Extra
it.
kids,
We do.
$50, you know, you want
Yeah.
a shower, fine, daily pass.
Yeah.
We're just trying to smooth that
It's
through.
harder to calculate what the projected revenue.
Exactly.
When we're going off,
yeah,
rounding
I
them up.
see 195 from a general public's perspective, looks much more appealing than 200.
We tried to,
When you know, it's like going from 95 to 100,
right,
you get three figures versus.
You're talking
It's
market.
just a perception.
right,
It's a perception.
right,
And
right,
I see why you do that, and it makes a lot of sense.
right.
But we're not in
Some
retail,
perspective.
Mike.
Um,
This is not,
Kind of.
we're not telling $37.99 for a car.
Kind of. I'm telling you that 5% early bird discount.
You guys do it,
is
I vote aye.
amazing.
Now, do whatever
Just to
you
give
want.
you some perspective, my grandchildren, them
Like gas.
on the East Coast.
$0.99.
Family pass,
Yeah,
town a little bit bigger than Monroe, $6.85 for the summer. And they were laughing at the neighbors,
Right.
kids playing outside, and I was telling them how much it cost here, and they were just laughing about how cheap it was. He said it would be cheaper for them to get a plane ticket and fly here and go swimming,
Yeah.
and then go home.
Yeah.
$6.85.
I mean, I will say that, I mean, I feel like compared to the area like Monticello, Monroe, we're not too far off. But Monroe also has an actual like water slide in their pool. I mean, it's hard to compare pools because they're so different, and then it depends on who they're run by, school versus municipality. But then also, we hear a lot of people say, oh, why don't you raise the school tax? But Lynn, previous clerk told me that when we raised fees 2 years ago, it was the most complaints she ever got from the public about anything.
How does that change
They're
the
gonna
school?
complain about that anyway. I mean, and Monroe also has a competition. A lot.
Right, right, right.
There's a lot of variables there that
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to walk downtown than to drive in the road or run on the wrong side.
right,
Pack your kids up and go there, you can take a nice walk
right.
in your stroller and wagon.
With the school, pool in Belleville.
Yep.
How does that impact their season pass? Cheaper, more expensive?
Um,
That's what she-
We couldn't really get much information on Belleville. And Belleville also has a splash pad now, which is like another added layer, and like the splash pad is free until the pool opens, but then when the pool opens, you have to pay for it. And
Different.
I honestly would say what our pool offers, Monticello, is very comparable of actual pools. Like, they have a baby pool, they have a big pool, they have a diving board, slide, same as we do. And we're more expensive than Monticello, but the thing I will say versus Monticello is we are open way more. Our hours are longer, we offer more opportunities and more programming.
And not to get too far ahead, I think our bottom line consideration is we're gonna have a pool, we're gonna subsidize. Okay. Taxpayers are gonna subsidize.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, then we get into the next. They do
Okay.
discussion here, which you guys have worked out the preliminary. And these scenarios on that preliminary, right?
Correct, yeah, so, just for the background, last year, the budget, revenue covered the expenses of lifeguard staff, wage and fringe costs. So that's kind of how we were looking at this, is how can we get something similar for a future budget if we increase wages for lifeguards? So the scenarios look at that. So the first scenario, for example, increases daily pass, season pass, flat swim by 9%. That's the attached fee schedule. It increases swim lesson fees by $20. So that would generate a total revenue of $51,000. But if we increase lifeguard wages to $11 starting, $15 an hour for certification, that costs $75,000. So there would be a deficit of $13,000, which would have to be made up by general fund tax levy. So we ran a few other scenarios in case you wanted to narrow that gap more. So you could raise fees more, you could raise them by 15%, and that has a deficit of $11,000. You could keep fees at the 9%, but decrease the wage of lifeguards to $14 an hour, and that reduces the deficit to $9,900. And then the final scenario is 15% fee increases and the $14 an hour lifeguard wages, and that is a $7,500. So kind of depends on how much you want the general fund to make up the difference. And of course, we'll have to have that discussion further once we get into the 24 budget.
And I'll also say too, like, obviously these revenues are very predicted. I mean, if we have horrible weather next year and we're paying our guards 15, I mean, obviously they're not working as much, but I want to make it very clear that in a perfect world, this is how it'll work out, but the pool is so hard to pick.
I think at a minimum, we should raise the starting wage to $11. And whether we go to 14 or 15 for certification, you're taking, when they're certified, that's just benefits us because they have more training.
Right.
If something were to happen, they're gonna be more prepared.
And
I think it should be worth their time to do that, and then we're keeping our kids here.
Right, and I will say too, the other thing to consider as a previous lifeguard is, I think sometimes because they're high school and college age kids that we forget how important the job is that they do. But this summer, for example, Broadhead had a drowning, and thankfully he survived, but it was because the lifeguards knew what to do. And that would be a fear as a parent of having lifeguards that we don't pay well enough to want to get certified or want to get trained, or just not having people there that we want there. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
I have a relative who used to inspect lifeguards, and that was his biggest need. Having staff that wasn't trained or certified, it's so important because they're trained to look for stuff instead of just getting $1 an hour, or $9 an hour.
And when it's your kid or grandkid, you want the right people there, so.
And whether we're paying 75 or 11.3, I'd rather subsidize the 11.3, pay our kids $15 an hour to certify. And then they don't have to pay for gas to leave town, they can come here to town, walk, whatever,
And that's where we got
Not have to
the
drive,
15, yeah.
pay car insurance,
Yep.
and have car maintenance, and pay for gas, and go to a different community.
And that's where we got the $15 an hour. Megan thought that was competitive, that even though we're only still more, that would keep, and I think she had a conversation with that guard that left, and she had kind of alluded to, this range would be to keep her.
Well, and keep this in mind, they all go to school together, so they know siblings and kids that are growing, that have a connection with these kids going to the pool, so they're gonna be more vigilant. So if we can keep them employed, that is one.
So you like that scenario?
I do.
I gotta say,
You know-
I do too.
It's just,
The scenario was to keep the two.
Number two.
I would go to number two, $11 an hour starting salary,
Right.
and $15 an hour certified for the reasons that.
And then do the 15% increase or the 9? I guess that's the big difference.
I would do a
So would I.
15% increase. Yeah, right, you.
Some of these are ridiculously reasonable.
Yes,
Also,
they are.
the other thing too that I just wanna add as like an underlying note is that we're obviously still going through the budget and we don't have our exact number on what we can levy tax dollars that is related to debt. So, for example, if we agree to go with scenario 2 and for some reason we need the money that we're not putting towards the pool, we're gonna do somewhere else, that could result in a cut elsewhere. So I just wanna make sure that we're aware of that going into this, that this is important enough to be willing to cut something else out that might have cost the extra $11,000.
Is this being a trailhead, is it worth any sort of advertising or signage at the depot here to say, for those of you who want a shower, come over to the pool, we can pay a fee, we
Yeah.
get advertised,
Yeah.
and the next time they come,
Right.
I can go shower.
Right.
We'd like to draw them back. Excellent, yes, there you go.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
here,
If the.
yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think we should definitely ask Becca.
I had an idea there, maybe reach out to the DNR.
Exactly, have them vote for those of you who want to shower while you're here.
Yep.
Feel free to come down and
Put a
swim.
sign right where they.
Exactly, where you check in, you pay your park fees.
Yep.
I think it's, they can take a bike ride down the hill,
Yeah,
take a shower
great.
like that, or walk to town with their kids.
Not me.
You plan on having more kids?
Larry?
Sorry, Larry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't cover it. I have a couple of comments. First, how are lifeguards not LTEs? In other words, we're paying village seasonal LTEs 15 an hour starting. And I think they have less responsibility than a lifeguard does, from what you said.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so important for a community to teach their kids how to swim that we as a community have to support them more and keep fees low so all of those kids can learn.
The responsibilities are different.
They are.
Responsibility to kids, but there's still a huge liability with what our public works people do, because they are.
I don't disagree with
They
that.
take care of a lot of stuff.
I think there's two jobs that have heavy responsibility that we're putting on high school and college kids, and I think we need to remember that when we're thinking about their pay. I think they have equal importance of responsibility, just
And
like
equal
apples
risk.
and oranges. Yeah. Which is, I think, why, another reason why we're looking at trying to get them in similar schedules. So obviously, if these lifeguards don't choose to be certified, they're only going to make the $11 an hour. They have to get certified.
Do we have to vote on that tonight?
It would be great if I could.
Good,
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we know the percentages of certified
Yep.
versus non?
So based on this last budget, there was 9 kids that came, there's 17 guards total. 8 of them were either certified or, returning, they were certified and they were returning, or they were newly certified. 9 of them came in at the lower rate and then got certified. I don't think we had anybody that came in at the lower rate besides our substitute guards that did not get certified.
So, is the certification, on them?
Kind of. So, our school director does give the certification classes here, but she has made it seem to us as though she would like them to go and get the certification from somewhere else because she thinks it would be even better. And in that case, we would be looking at covering the cost. We talked about, they have to be here for so long and we cover it, or,
Well, and then successful completion. You would
Yep, oh,
reimburse
yeah,
them upon
yep.
successful
Yeah.
Oh,
completion
yeah.
of the certification class.
Yep.
Otherwise, if they don't, I'm not, I don't want to.
Right.
Oh,
Is
right,
it-
right.
Is it two different licensures? I know it used to be the certification for lifeguard, and then now chapel is instructor. So is,
They have to have CPR and basic training to be a lifeguard, and then there's the WSI certification, which is like the not.
and how many of those do we have?
All, I
All
believe,
of them are
except for
WSI.
the part-time or substitute, whatever you want to
They're
call it.
all part.
Yeah, yeah.
Another question, I don't know how related this is, does that also involve training for, the drug overdose? Okay. With as much of a problem as that is becoming in the communities, is there any training?
I have to.
That might be part of their,
Well,
Let's face it.
don't do that.
Yeah, I have to ask again, I don't know.
but we don't have,
Just taking the.
I don't think they have any Narcan or anything.
we don't do, but
I don't know, I just throw a question
I
out.
don't think they have Narcan.
well, we don't have, I mean, we don't have the, substance here anyway. You do,
Not
Okay.
Narcan, we have.
you do, but
Not as.
I don't think
Scott said,
So, to add to this discussion here in regards to Narcan, when I was at the Lawn House, there was a service that came by and gave us free training on it and free Narcan with it. The only thing they asked is that if we ever use it, we let them know that we used it. And the situation or whatever, I don't know if it's for their statistics, but that as a result, they would reimburse or give us another Narcan.
Is there an age limit to how old you had to be to take that training and?
Everyone was over 18 that attended that training.
That might be.
So I don't know if there is a true answer, because Narcan really, if you didn't need to give it and gave it.
No.
Right, I just didn't know if there was a certain age limit.
Worth throwing out there, it's a
Yeah,
problem.
definitely.
And if they do this for free and our lifeguards are 18 and over, it could be an additional certification. To know that the situation ever happened, we have somebody.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Well, we do have some.
well, but I'm saying, you have.
plus the
What
And
Mike
the
said, following up on that, you have it on site,
Right.
it's free, there's free training. It's a benefit.
And it'd be something that could be done during their normal training anyway.
Well,
So-
maybe we're getting beyond what we started out.
And I will add, like what Mike said, though, they do have trainings, they'll do it, the human services got a program too, where they even put a box up and they reach out to everybody, and they put the Narcan in, because the YMCA did it, and they have the Narcan metal box right next to the AED, going to the courthouse, they have the Narcan box right next to the AED, they pull the thing, it sounds an alarm, so you know it's going off, and they can grab the Narcan, it's right next to the AED.
We don't have-
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's right next to the park there and everything.
I think we do it though, not here.
We do have an ADT?
I think we do at the pool, don't we?
Well, listen,
Yeah.
I think we're getting beyond the,
Yeah.
the issue here. We're going to vote on, what are we going
But
to
it's good.
do the fees. The requirements, I think, will have to come from a much more intricate discussion. But, do we have a motion?
Not yet.
I'd like to move that we approve, scenario to increase daily pass season. Pass and lapse number at 15%.
Mike, second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item F, consideration discussion, equipment fund and triathlon sinking fund. Lauren?
Right, so we have two sinking funds, these are basically like savings accounts that we hold for bigger purchases, for emergencies, kind of, we'll put funds away in them and, use in the future. So we have two sinking funds, CTV equipment and triathlon that are not being used. So we're trying to kind of clean up our budget a little bit here. We'd like to move those, to a more useful fund. So CTV, cable TV equipment, back in 2021, the village board voted to relinquish the local channel, and therefore we don't need to hold on to the CTV equipment funds. Our attorney at the time said it was fine to transfer those funds somewhere else. So So, we would recommend transferring this total balance just to our general fund surplus. This can help kind of offset any deficits that we have at the end of the year for budget, if needed. So that's the recommendation for that one. The second one is the triathlon sinking fund. Village staff used to put on a triathlon. It's a lot of work, with limited revenue. I think in 2019, it made like $3,000, which is, not enough for the amount of staff time it takes to put it on. So we would recommend transferring the total balance, which is about $6,024, to the park and pool sinking account. Does those make sense or?
I second the discussion on that.
Yeah,
Well, the triathlon was formed to help pay for the pool,
Right, okay.
way back when.
Well, I was just gonna, we just recommended an increase. The hourly wages and the rate increase.
That's operating, this is,
Okay.
this is.
So the one time.
we do have a motion.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, as stated in the memo, is what we're moving CTV to general, and we're moving triathlon to park and pool.
That's what was moved.
Motion and second.
It won't push. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, motion carries. Okay, item 6 is nothing for Parks and Rec, nothing for Public Works and Safety, nothing for Finance and Personnel, and I have nothing. So item 10, announcement, the village board will adjourn to closed session pursuant to the Wisconsin State Statute 1985-1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. Village administrator performance review.
I move, to go into closed session. As soon as everybody's on.
Okay, fire away.
Mike Bell,
Yes.
Larry Busey,
Aye.
Chuck Phillips,
Yes.
Don Thompson, Mike Marty,
Yes. Oh.
Peggy Cruz.
Sure.